Okay, so welcome for this second half of the program. We're going to be now presenting, maybe guys from everyone else, if you can show up, turn on your camera, would feel a bit less lonely here. Thank you very much. Oh yeah, Jen. So yes. Welcome everyone to this second part of the session that is going to be about the sphere, this wonderful little project that we have all here present co-created. So maybe just to give you a sense of how things are going to be going. Okay, Ule seems to have a little bit of a problem showing his camera. Yael, I guess, is relaxing. And Lene is not there yet. I don't know if she's stuck outside. Let's see. Okay. So let's get going. So basically, I've carried everyone here into this this session, Tut mir leid. So I'm going to take responsibility for that and try to introduce the sphere as best as I can, and then maybe give a few coordinates of like around the challenges, the aspirations that we're entertaining as the Sphere Collective. And then it's going to be a very open session where everyone's going to take relay and present perspectives on the Sphere, and let's see where it goes. It's a fairly open time. We have plenty of time. We're going to try to make sure that we have an eye on the chat, on the MoneyLab stream, so that you can participate also in the discussion. But maybe before I go on, maybe if everyone here would like to say a little something, just to introduce yourself, and yeah, that would maybe help, because it feels lonely, you know, in this little square. Oh, Lenny arrived. Great. Hey.
Sure, I can start, Erik. My name's Joel Mason. I'm the Anarchive research lead at the Sphere, kind of co-designing with everybody, different aspects of it. Good to be here.
Yeah, I'm Olle. I'm a Swedish circus director and artist, and a lovely crew member of the Sphere. And yeah, I will speak more later, but yeah, I'm in the lovely sun. Love it.
Should I go? I'm Jim. I'm a Curve Lab Sphere hybrid. Yeah, weird tech and economies at Sphere. This is the context of the skull.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah. I'm also based in Sweden, Stockholm right now. I'm a production manager, producer in performing arts. Have been so for the last 25 years or so. I work with Olle. So we are the like the founders of the Sphere in a way. Nice to be here.
Yeah, my name is Lena Fallhart. I'm a multidisciplinary artist and filmmaker based in London at the moment. And I have the pleasure to work with the Sphere members on videos and communications, especially.
Okay, so Beth, do you want to say a little something, or?
Sure. Hey, I'm Beth. I work at Gnosis, which is a DAO company, and yeah, have just been doing some different projects with the Sphere, like exploring like DAO and NFTs and all of these things. So
Great. So let me share my screen. Let's see if it works. Okay. Okay, so okay, can you see my screen? Okay, great. I'm in this wonderful website that we have created not so long ago. So let me try to be a little bit formal here and introduce the sphere for people who have no idea what it is. Inspired by the recent innovation in the field of distributed ledger technologies and blockchain and peer-to-peer contributive economies, the Sphere is a transdisciplinary research creation project funded by Creative Europe for the development of a digital infrastructure for self-organization in the performing arts. It allows artists, cultural professional audience, cultural organizations, a wide range of sympathizers, and other potential stakeholders to initiate creative collaborations and implement new funding strategies. So the Sphere aims to become a place of mutually transformative exchanges and development between artistic processes, art flows, and funding practices, economic flows, pragmatically experimenting with new modes of funding in the arts and beyond. So this is for the formal introduction of what the Sphere is doing. There's a lot going on right now on our side. The project starts back a while ago. Like Sarah was suggesting, Sarah and Ulle attended an EXA, Economic Space Agency, open office back in January 2018 in Stockholm, and it's been a love story from then on, basically. We applied for different fundings, we got some, we missed some others, and we landed this big Creative Europe grant that really makes it possible for us to launch this collective vision and deploy it over the next 3 years. So I'm extremely proud and honored to work with you guys. It's really a pleasure. I was thinking the best way to introduce ourselves and to introduce the Sphere is maybe this little video that we created a few months ago as we were here we go. As we were presenting the project to the Creative Europe. So Aeon, if you are there, it'd be a good moment to launch the video Undo Business as Usual.
Hi, my name is Olle. I'm an artistic director, a circus artist, and one of the founders of the Sphere. Right now, at the end of 2020, the need for an alternative organizing system for the art world is more obvious than ever. We propose a system that distributes power differently between actors and stakeholders and incentivizes artistic inventiveness rather than stifling it. The Sphere is a radically innovative P2P community platform that enables the performing arts ecosystem to initiate creative collaborations and implement new funding strategies. With the Sphere, we want to create a space where the circulation and experience of value is felt differently. A space that allows us for common risk-taking, trust and collective compositions beyond what is deemed possible. In the Sphere, everyone is already an entrepreneur taking from the in-between and an entrepreneur giving to the in-between. We are always already at stake with each other, partnered all the way down, artists and audience brought together to share the risks and opportunities of making art. But how do we transform the traditional modes of value capture and open it up for the benefit of the community? How do we transform economic loops into social and artistic flows and back? One thing is clear, the time for merely complaining about one's precarity is over. With blockchain technology, economy is now a design question. This is the age of monetary experimentation. The financial class doesn't have the monopoly over risk-taking practices or the craft of its instruments. The economy, as we know it, needs a full reset. Everyone knows it, but no one seems to know how to proceed. We need to undo business as usual. We need to undo the economic forms that hold us mesmerized and captive. We need to make our economy weird again.
Really, do you have any impression on that a couple of months later?
I mean, this context for this one, the like presentation of the different projects in this very stiff situation, and that we managed to do the live stream version of this. I'm really having a great fun time, an awkward moment looking at it, but it's I'm proud.
It was so funny, like every other project that got the funding, we're basically reading slides, and then we came up with that crazy video, and and one of the EU administrators at the end said, "Oh, it doesn't end well, does it?" So anyway, that was a good one. So let me read a little bit. Basically. I'm going to open up a few dimensions that I think are part of the work that we are doing together. And then land with a performance from one of the great friends of the sphere, Jay Gilligan. But yeah. So, as we said before, the sphere offers an otherwise circus production aesthetics with self-organizing propositions that create a new mode of exposure and circulation for circus performances. A key component is that the way the sphere integrates the creators, the public, and the producers into a burgeoning ecosystem, facilitating the synchronization of interest and purposes. The name of the project captures intuitively this all-encompassing intent. So how do we conceive of the becoming machinic of the social and the becoming social of the abstract machines we are part of? A bit building on the previous conversation with Yael and Janina, where we tried to probe a little bit the state system as it is. And then when we start opening up the design system possibilities through blockchain, like what happens, so there's this whole idea of a becoming machinic of the social, a becoming social of the machinic, that is kind of a leitmotif for the stuff we're doing. And that leads to the question of organization. The question of organization is fraught with innumerable difficulties and surrounded by endless cliches, all the more so when it is framed as a governance issue. The voluntarist injunctions to better organize resounds anxiously and triumphantly across corporate consultant speak and socially progressive milieus alike. How many times have we experienced the intimate, almost impalpable, yet very real sense of deterioration and impoverishment of our relational vitality following yet another call to organize? How many more times can we afford to be pseudo-professionally handled as unorganized or disorganized or not organized enough by the various upholder of generalized governance and management mystique? The concept of governance relates to the structuring of decision-making processes for enterprises, and as such is consubstantial to the depoliticization of social relations. Franco Bifo Berardi has a quite sanguine take on the question and kind of drives the point home. He says, governance, this word which has totally invaded the field of political non-thought, was first proposed and deconstructed by Luhmann in the 70s and 80s. Governance is the automation of thought, the automation of social existence. Governance is information without meaning, a dominance of the unavoidable. And yet, I would say, organize we must. Governance is a highly contested term, yet it is likely to remain unavoidable when dealing with question of organization at scale. As Lovink and Rossiter aptly suggest in Organizations After Social Media, it is better to recognize that governance is not a dirty word, but one that is internal to the logic and protocols of self-organization. In a world moving towards a crude social fragmentation, the way we create new techno-social modes of coordination has indeed become crucial. The challenge is to terraform new metamorphic passages between the micro scale of collective presence and the macro scale of media aggregations. How to understand organization, write Lovik and Rossiter, in times of neoliberal clouds, personalized networks, and advanced forms of non-commitment. We urgently need new forms and cultural imaginaries to conspire. How can we envisage the radical or post-think tank as a form? So this is from Geert Lovink and Ned Rossiter, and this, for me at least, really helps structuring the bigger picture. Like the Sphere is one project tapping in the affordances of new distributed ledger technologies and addressing that type of question of what does it mean to organize in the 21st century, and what does it mean to scale organizations in the cultural field and beyond. So I don't know if the Sphere qualifies as a think tank, but we sure are engaged in artistic knowledge production. I guess we could say that the Sphere can be described as a contributive learning site, a process of digital cosmo-localization, following the idea that a problem is always a practical problem, never a universal problem mattering for everybody. That is, learning is always local. And from that perspective, the challenge then becomes precisely about how to produce such situated learning localities, digitally or otherwise. So that's like really something that I think is fundamental when we talk about organizing. Organizing is not just about creating rules that we then abide by. I think that a lot of the organization happens through the co-learning processes that we are part of. And especially in a context like the Sphere, where, I mean, every other day we're discovering something new. Jem brings in a new possibility on the tech side, and we're all like trying to catch up asynchronously and as best as we can. So these learning localities, to say it a bit abstractly, is one way of conceiving what we like to call digital souls. You can think of a soul as a recursive mechanism or a looping movement. What is called a soul is this very capacity of coming back to oneself with a memory of a difference. So a soul, maybe the formula would be memory plus difference equals soul. Soul in that speculative context is definitely not a substance, even though you can lose it. I think that we all agree that we could lose our soul, or that losing our souls is something that happens at time. But a soul is not a substance. It's more like a weirding power. It's like a minima of belonging, a threshold of locality, a differential vulnerability, or let's say a sensibility for the potentiality to come. Sometimes there's this feeling that, hey, here is where things might be going. Here's where we should be going altogether. And as an emergent collective, the Sphere has a quite intuitive way of navigating its playground or a play tank. So how do we create the conditions to make us think and experiment as an emergent ensemble, to make us able to risk and speculate together? And I guess my point here, and some of you have heard it already, but I think it's worth mentioning again. My point here is that let's not take our capacities to aspire and conspire for granted. These are precious resources, and yeah, super happy to share that with you guys. I thought I would maybe share my screen on that one. Just because there's a quote that I find really beautiful, really inspiring for what we're trying to do. Let me see if I manage. Yes. Okay. So this is a quote that comes from the very last book that Henri Bergson published, The True Source of Moral and Religion. And he says, men do not sufficiently realize that their future is in their own hands. Theirs is the task of determining, first of all, whether they want to go on living or not. Okay, it's a bit dramatic. There's the responsibility then for deciding if they want to merely live or intend to make just that extra effort required for fulfilling, even on their refractory planet, the essential function of the universe, which is a machine for the making of gods. And I mean, this quote is a bit overkill, but I really like it because the question of organization has some sort of godly power to it. What does it mean to organize? If you're readers of Anti-Oedipus, or I mean, just Deleuze and Guattari, you know that the whole thing about the body without organs is to defy the judgment of God. The judgment of God is the judgment of organization and the production of organs. So what is it here? Like, we want to be flowing, but at the same time, we are constantly talking about, hey, we need to organize, we need to create something, you know? So that's a challenge, you know, that we're in. And yeah, that challenge we tackle in different ways. And one way, I guess, is to say that our civilization, again, Monsieur Henri Bergson says, our civilization is aphrodisiac. So love as an organizing power, I guess. So what does that mean? And I really like the way that Peter Sloterdijk interprets that idea that civilization is aphrodisiac. He says that we live in a world made of virtuous circles of creative self-intensifications, a volatile and spirited world aspired by aspirations, constantly uplifting itself into existence. So he calls that spheres. He calls spheres these virtuous feedback loops that generate the cultural atmosphere that we live in. His sphere trilogy, made of bubbles, foams, and globes, foreground the essentially climatic dimension of our being in the world, paving the way for a new approach to our environmental and cultural surrounds. The trilogy reads as a differential and perhaps cosmo-financial ontology of media flows, developed under the sign of the fecund foam, that is to say, under the patronage of Aphrodite. In Greek, aphros means foam. So the aphrology, or aphrogenetic, brings us to interrogate not only the mode of procreation of gods, but also the origin of the human from the perspective of the aerial, the suspended, the mixed, and the inspired. So to bring it back to the sphere's perspective, or from the animation of the sphere's perspective, what is most fragile is also what is most real, or again, what is most vulnerable, the most valuable. The spheres, and specifically here our sphere in the first place, are about simultaneous processes of co-immunity and schizofragility. And we can go into it later in the discussion. I know Jem has coined schizofragility as a concept, and he always says that I kind of misunderstand it. So I guess it's a good moment to check it out. And the question of co-immunity is something that we discuss a lot also with Curve Labs, and more specifically with Curve Labs co-founder Patrick Rawson, who has written amazing stuff on the question of co-immunity, bringing in a blockchain-informed perspectives. Like, what does it mean to create the containers, the blockchain-based containers for new types of organization? And he's tackling the question very, very seriously. So co-immunity and schizofragility. The schizofragility is maybe where the art starts to matter in different way and escape a little bit the hard grasp of the technological itself. So when discussing the political art of air conditioning of our symbolic spaces, Sloterdijk likes to draw our attention toward a conception of ourselves as atmosphere designers and climate guardians. And what is actually hinted at here is a way of conceiving of our intimate and collective capacities to aspire and conspire as something inherently fragile and that should not be taken for granted. This is about the weather within and underground, a place where strangely the infra-individual and the macroeconomic trends tend to meet with one another. And that made me think when I was writing that of the circus artists these days who can't perform, and some of them just became day traders. You know, like that weird mix of co-immunity and schizophragility of the circus artist and the day trader. Because we live in really weird times, as you have already figured out. So the difference introduced by the theory of the spheres that I'm interested in here is that it makes us more attentive to, I quote, moments of upward movements, of excess and of free drift within the anthropogenetic islands. Anthropogenetic islands, you can imagine the sphere being one of such digital locality or island drifting. Every Telegram chat has this Afrogenetic island quality. In fact, in a polemic contrast with strands of transcendental miserabilism, Sloterdijk goes so far as to say that, I quote again, without an explicit concept of upward movement, the original Afrogenetic activity of the human being is not expressible. So that's kind of like, it's something that I like to call a proof of celebration, or like anything that like underlines the fact that we enjoy coming together, you know, like in a way or another. And it matters. The way we care for our modes of enjoyment really matter for the vitality of the spheres or the digital localities or the in-person localities that we're generating for ourselves. So this upward movement can be interpreted in different ways. Following Deleuze and Guattari, we can think of it as surplus value of code, or what Brian Masumi in their wake calls surplus value of life. The focus on what exceeds and overflow is key here. It is the key for a renewed interpretation of the entanglement of art and value flows through a perspective and updated understanding of gift economy for our time. But I'm not going to go further into that gift economy thing. Maybe it pops up later in the discussion. But basically, it's a tough one. But like, how do we think of our economies and upcoming economies from the perspective of excess and abundance, and not only from the scarcity informed perspective? So maybe one last thing about this question is that our capacity to aspire and conspire, well, they're not evenly distributed. As Arjuna Padurai has noted, it is a sort of meta capacity, and the relatively rich and powerful invariably have a more fully developed capacity to aspire. The capacity to aspire presents itself as a navigational capacity, a little bit like what Janina was describing before. How do we even reach the level at which we ask the right question to the state so that we can get money from the state? I mean, it's just like one example, but like this capacity to aspire and to then navigate with it is not a given, you know, and yeah, that I think the discussion we've had with Yael just before is quite interesting in that sense of like the limits of the systems that we're operating in. So the capacity to aspire is a navigational capacity, I would argue. The more privileged in any society simply have used the map of its norms to explore the future more frequently and more realistically, and to share this knowledge with one another more routinely than their poorer and weaker neighbors. So this meta capacity, the capacity to aspire and conspire, is a collective asset. The German word Vermögen is, in this sense, quite evocative. Its semantic range simultaneously includes wealth, property, or financial assets, and the idea of a shared faculty or power, the capacity to know or to act. The antonym Unvermögen signifies incapacity. So the active potentiality suggested by the term Vermögen reminds us why Karl Marx's masterwork is called Capital and not simply money. So last but not least, I want to say just a few things about this strange alliance of circus and finance, because I think it's super productive and there is a lot that is up for grabs there. So these considerations around the care for our capacities to collectively aspire and conspire leads me to that final point. What kind of claim on the future of circus, of performing arts more generally, are we interested in making? How a better appraisal of the power of performing arts could contribute to bringing ourselves up to the challenge posed by the great ecological transition awaiting us. So that was one of the questions that we share with Yael and that we wanted to address as realistically as possible with Janina. It's like the art system as it exists post-Second World War was designed to address a certain idea of what art is about. And I believe, and that's kind of an open discussion here, that the way we found art also conditions the type of art that we are calling into existence. And I think that in that sense, the sphere, like part of our discussions, and I guess we can open that up, is about the way of reconceiving the relation between the art production and the funding, thinking of the new challenges awaiting us. So finance is traditionally understood as the transformation of radical uncertainty into manageable risk. But as it prospects for ways of generating surplus value, the virtual body of capital generates highly qualified relations to futurity that challenges the very limits of our cultures of knowing and forecasting. This speculative movement calls for new ecologies of knowledge to account for our economic abstractions. How can we leverage our own capacities to take risks and enter into metastable collective compositions beyond what is deemed possible or insurable? Like that's a question. How to leverage our capacities to take risk and enter into metastable collective compositions. So that's a bit of a technical language here, but basically another thing that I want to put on the table is that finance is about risk management. And it's a defensive position somehow. I mean, it's prospective, it's predatorial, but it's also about hedging. And as a Francophone, I didn't hear the H in hedge fund. So I always thought it was edge fund, as like a pure shark procedure, but it's actually about covering, it's about securities, it's about protecting something. So it's quite interesting to see like this whole risk management grammar and then try to tweak it through a lived understanding, or let's call it a lived abstraction of what it means to vibe together, what it means to enter into metastable compositions. So communities can be conceived of as, it's a very partial understanding of community, but they can be conceived of as risk-generating spaces and practices. It's easy to consider, for instance, the circus community as one that is bounded by a corporal economy where risk counts as its own reward, where, and I'm quoting Randy Martin here, a risky move is granted immediate value by the creative ensemble. And also an economy in which the flows of life are reappraised as a kind of abundance. And this is something that we learned with the work of Robert Vosnitzer and the Wealth of Society project, more generally, back in the EXA days, where we were introduced to the financial value of the invention of skateboard. Like skateboard didn't exist, and then one day it existed, and it followed a drought in California, and then following the drought, the pools were empty, and then the empty pools for certain trained eyes and bodies appeared as a potential for playfulness, and then from the surf to the skateboard, the rest is history. But that moment of invention is extremely crucial. We can't take that potentiality for granted. Like there's a problem where looking at everything from afterwards, we can be critical about the invention of skateboarding or whatever, but there was a moment where it meant that it was an invention for certain people. And that matters. That makes a huge difference, I think. So, what better than circus to make felt a renewed sense of enhanced shared volatility in these precarious times? During our Digital Commons Lab event back in November in Stockholm, and God knows that some of us took risk to travel to Stockholm back in November. Jay Gilligan created a new performance that I find so compelling to open up our imaginaries of how we could organize otherwise. The whole performance lasts about 40 minutes. And Lene, who's here today, she just as of today, this morning, created a beautiful edited shorter version of about 7-8 minutes. So basically, that's where I would end. I think that this performance is a fantastic document, or what we like to call, with Joel and the rest of the team, a fragment, a lived or live fragment that is parts and parcel of the coordination of our wider collective, even though we don't know exactly what it says. Like, in what way does this fragment or this performance offered by Jay helps us coordinate is still a bit of a mystery, but I let you judge. So Aeon, maybe if you can present the second video. I don't know if Aeon has heard us.
Hello from the children of planet Earth.
This is a new and strange environment at first. This suddenly finding yourself in orbit.
In Discovery Houston, we've got a good picture of Steve. Godspeed, John Glenn.
Roger, 0G, and I feel fine. Capsule is turning around. I have the fireflies.
Oh, Roger.
And God bless all of you on the good earth. Picture here. Being out here in the wonders of the unknown again, we come to realize there's a fundamental truth to our nature. Man must explore.
Hello from the children of planet Earth.
This is a juggling machine. It has no feedback, there is no cameras, there's no sensors, It's just a mechanical movement that will recreate the act of juggling. And that's not entirely true. Actually, this machine has eyes, it has ears, it has emotions, it has intentions, but it just so happens that all those things are inside of me. Oh, maybe it's people coming in here to... No? No. That's it. So, like I was saying, what we have here is actually a time-traveling cyborg. Cyborg because it's a human machine, and time-traveling because the calibration takes place before the machine actually juggles. And this means a few different things. Number one, it means that, well, just like any human, this can go very wrong. But number two, it also starts to point out that the 3-ball juggling pattern in itself is a time machine. We can see in the 3-ball pattern the place of any one ball at all times. One ball was just caught, one ball will be caught, and the other ball has been thrown. And this way we can say 3 balls is time travel. So with this time-traveling cyborg, we do actually have some time travel, if it works. To that end, I'm a little bit sad that Shim's not here, because this is for him. Because he likes things that are destructive and that die and that are bloody, right? And this is for him. Because it just so happens that on my juggling machine, we have this big red button here. And this is not a theatrical joke. This is actually a kill switch. When this button is pressed, all power to the machine is cut. This was done because my friend who made this, when he was working on it, sometimes had to press it so it would stop moving and stop it from breaking. But since he added this under the control box, I thought it was really nice that when the machine is running, I'm going to place it right here underneath the pattern. And if I've done my job incorrectly, one of the balls fall, the machine will kill itself. So I thought Shim would like this, but I'll have to watch the video later. So, to get this going, let's see. This is, by the way, the first time anything like this has been done in the history of the world. And that's not a joke. Previously, there's been juggling machines, but they use optical feedback, robotics, computer processor to analyze where the objects are going. And this is the first time, maybe, in the history of the world where we have a fully autonomous juggling machine without any feedback. So let's see here if this is going to work.
Okay. I mean, guys, it's up to you. I think I've said my part. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Erik. It's been a treat. I mean, it's very interesting to follow this video and Jay's performance. I will make like a very, very short introduction from myself. I mean, I'm also a juggler and an acrobat. And as a juggler, when I was around, been juggling for a while, I was around 17 years old or something. And then Jay became my mentor also in juggling. So we have been like working together for several years, and it's so great to see his kind of awkward, lovely stuff get presented into a different context. That also, only for that, I would say that the range of experience in the public watching him doing this particular presentation was really heartwarming, because I feel like he's been also delivering like amazing concepts and ideas that has like really a difficult time navigating and landing in the perfect landing site for the different experiments that he creates, and I feel that for him also to have been a part in all the discussions we had before and after this presentation has been like a awakening or re-evoking like our juggling practice together. Also for myself, I haven't been active like as a juggler or performer for over a decade, really. Like, of course, I've been doing some stuff here and there because it was my whole life before. But this something new started, and just a few weeks ago when we had a little tryout for our upcoming Anarchiving lab that will come, then me and Jay was starting to improv together with juggling balls and started to create like derivative spin-offs a little bit in the same mode as like the skateboard or the cipher mode, like just being a spectator and then someone that can actively, that is literate in this very discipline and can actively then create derivative work of the suggested patterns or the visual patterns of the objects being thrown and catch. So this was like I'm always super happy to think about this, and now we have this neat, weird 7-minute version of it. It's great. So I started out at a very young age doing like circus, and juggling was my entry point to circus when I was like 10 years old or something like that. And then I've been like developing juggling and acrobatic skills for since then, with kind of the wish for performing around the world and so on. So I did that, but after going to what is now the Circus University, the embryo of the Circus University here in Stockholm, I broke my neck. So I was paralyzed from a neck down doing a triple back somersault. So I had to kind of pivot a little bit in terms of what's possible. So my plan B for acrobatics was juggling, but I had I couldn't move my arms and hands and so on. So I had to kind of refigure a lot of stuff. And I think that trauma threw me away from like being a practitioner for quite a while, made me zoom out and reflect a little bit on a larger scale, which was sad in one way. I can nostalgically miss just being inside of the juggling studio all day, every day. And now I'm an artist, but artist also means like I have like this on the one side of me, like, and then some of the neat stuff here. But this is burdening, like mother. And then anyway. Nowadays, I work as a circus director, and also I'm a founder of Saloranta and de Wilder, or a radar-styled novel that me and Sarah that was presenting herself, and she's here. So we've been trying to find different like formats and shapes and ways of looking at circus and the circus practice, and circus also as the meeting point, like a multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary art form in itself, that you cannot really find the core in it. So it happens in the meeting between, like historically also it's been like these different circus disciplines, they're only connected by being connected in this thing, in the circus building or the circus context, and therefore we are working together. So we have to all the time navigate between different experiences and preferences, and this is so interesting as a director also. Why would a circus need a circus director, and the whole identity crisis of like this art form and where it should go, and the feeling of that it's hard to grasp and organize around something that is very abstract. And we try to find definitions because we want to please a certain formal aspect, like we want to be accepted as an art form. We are now in Sweden more or less like part of the grant system and so on, but still we're fighting with what is it that that connects us, and this very struggle itself is so it makes so much sense then when I see the J video here, for instance, it's like it makes a lot of sense. Just to be very brief, I am a part on one side. I was a chairperson of Manegen, which is really the place, almost a little bit like what was discussed in the last or in the session before the break. We had Manegen works as a national member organization for circus, variety, and street performance. So I've been working with those questions, and the members there are artists, producers, creators, students, and also small and large companies from the whole country. And then also I'm sitting in the Arts Grants Committee in the group for dance and circus. And the Swedish Arts Grants Committee is a government agency, and the function is to support artists who work with areas of visual art, design, music, dance, circus, theater, and film. And they award grants and allowances and promote international cultural exchange and so on. So I've been like on that side of it, but also my heart, the reason why I engage there is, of course, because I want to be able to spend my time being a creative and in the meeting with the audience, with the public, that also should have, like, there's a lot of issues between what should happen in the art scene, in the performing art scene, and in the circus field, especially with the super great lack of infrastructure. But that's also something that opens up for many possibilities. So that's where I am right now. If I would introduce myself, it would be this messy and kind of fragmented a little bit. And I would that's my like spontaneous reflections on looking at Jay and then trying to introduce myself from there on. Now, if someone else wants to pick up, I can then go through some other things, like looking through the website a little bit and talk about different stuff. But I mean, you were just looking also the first time for this presentation of this video of Jay, and I don't know, any thoughts?
I have a few words about something Erik sort of mentioned, or at least like it's something that we have been juggling with, but I think it became much more clear in my mind, sort of like almost the economic recursion that's taking place behind the scene here. And it was about play as sort of this, or not, at least not play, but oh, hello. Yeah, I was just telling them.
Yeah, I heard about recursions.
Yeah. So no, I think it was very nice that you brought in this element that we want something to come back to, like we want something to keep playing. Otherwise, like if it dries up, like then there's nothing that will make us reactivate this mechanism, etc. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great contrast with like bureaucracy as organization versus play as organization, just to put like the spectral spread there. And I think that's something that we have been doing pretty well, I think. But obviously we have some way to go towards like actualization in terms of like grounding all these joyful elements, etc. See you in the screen. I thought that was great because it ties to this element, which is something. It ties to this element of attention, which is something that is super scarce, and it needs the stewarding in terms of like community design and cultivation, right? Like if that is not loved, then you see the deterioration in many experiments that are taking place in the world, either IRL or in crypto. So I think that focusing on that attention is like basically the community telling the individual, this is how much time you want to allocate to me, and that's really dynamic. It's not like same for every community, etc. And I think if you have seen Trust's presentation, they have a really amazing way of bringing that to the forefront. with technological excitingness, with novelty, etc. So I think we have a nice sort of mirroring of that spirit on the Sphere side. I just want to make those comments about your marvelous poetic summarization, Erik.
And I love it. I think it's so spot on. And and I like that we have recursive backgrounds, communicating rooms, because I mean, it can't only happen online. That there needs to be some physical meetings at some point. I don't know if Lenny, you want to tell us a little bit about the editing of the film, and maybe go on with other techniques that we generate, not to name the newsletter and Joel, I don't see him now. The camera is off, but yeah, could be. I'd be curious because you've put up that little trick so quick with the editing. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely, with pleasure, Erik. I mean, I think I just chose those little segments because I think they can show like various facets of circus, which for me were pretty new. Like I literally didn't know anything about circus before coming to this project and joining it. I think I had a pretty outdated idea of what a circus is. And I think looking at those little elements can reveal a lot about like different tactics of drama, really, and of the spectacle, which I think are pretty interesting also because they like challenge you in terms of what you maybe are expecting to see as a spectacle, and so new surprises are happening and so on. I mean, I could go into like details of looking at it conceptually, but maybe this is not the right framework right here for the MoneyLab. So what I could speak about is the little collaborative tool that we have created all together, really, inspired by a circular support system that is called the Mandala movement. And it's a secret. It's a very well-kept secret on the internet. You can't find it. Even if you dig really, really long, you will not find it because it's hidden in plain sight. It's maybe people who are part of the Mandala movement already. So it's basically a gift cycle. It's a gift circle that has been established, I would say, in this form probably 30 years ago, but lends itself from like many, many decades of support structures that are looking at nature and are looking at different cycles, looking at different aspects of growth. And the specific Mandala movement lends itself to the idea of the fractal, which is a cosmic principle, right? We can find it in many different shapes in the cosmos and in nature. And I don't know, by the way, if I should share my screen with you, because I don't know if it would help with what I have to say. I believe every one of you knows the shape of the fractal. And what we've basically done is we have looked into the structure and picked out a little slice of it, which is something that is shaped in triads. And we created a spiral structure that can be implemented into a fractalization, which of course creates an incremental growth, which is what we want to look further up into as we progress with the sphere. But at the moment, what is really interesting for us is to create a collaborative tool that creates a kind of rite of passage. That's what I would call it, because we really like to celebrate these kind of initiatory moments in which people belong to us and in which people start to belong to us. And because we also need to create repetitions of our belonging. And that's how we created the kind of spiral that works in triads and is constantly in growth and in taking turns. So currently we use this to create our internal newsletter, which is meant to also onboard our partners bit by bit. What else to say about it? I don't know. Does anyone else want to jump in maybe?
Yeah, I want to first ask what is one way that our audience can engage with the floating newsletter? That's because I think there's it's one of the most special things about the sphere. That's just like the mandala movement, Lene, it's unreachable so far as I know. So if people can access that, I think it's such an amazing content producing machine. This mandala structure. And maybe we can maybe narrate it as we show it as well. So which one is this one?
Yes, thank you, Ola. I was actually thinking about showing newsletter 10 and 11. Erik mentioned that he really liked the cliffhanger about the gift. Yes, exactly. This is this one. If you scroll just down a little bit. Is there any exception to the gift being an ultimate act of control? That was a cliffhanger that I gave because our current structure allows it so that we have a fixed set of rules, and the rules are strict enough to ensure that everyone is perpetually engaged in the newsletter, but it's also loose enough to ensure that we can create our own set of rules. So one of the rules that we have created and implemented into the rules is that we have cliffhangers with which we initiate our so-called wins. And our wins are the ones who are stepping into the mandala newsletter production. And so they have to answer to this cliffhanger. And I believe Erik was the one who had to, Jem was actually the one who had to respond to this one. This was just the introduction that Erik has expanded upon. This, this is actually the one of Jem, right? Jem, would you like to read it? Is that a good idea? What do you think?
I think we can move swiftly through it because, people can read it perhaps if we have it's on the website, because it's like sort of rabbit holes to lose yourself inside and try to ask these who wrote this, because it's not really clear since it's a collaborative and randomized mechanism. And if it wouldn't be sharing too much of the secret, I might should I elaborate how we go about publishing these things?
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. It would be good to speak about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Lene if she gives me the.
Yes,
okay.
No, we can do it. We can do it.
Because you carry it already within you.
Okay, awesome. So I think we have set 3 or 4 roles. Three main roles, which, as Lene described, these are the roles as bags of rules. They are fixed. So as chronologically or every time period passes, you move through these roles. Essentially, these roles are sun, earth, and the wind. Right? Am I missing something? That's all. So the sun plays the role of the final editor, the giver of the light, the giver of energy. The earth is a ground for cultivation, basically the main author, if you will, and the wind is the bringer of the idea, so the carrier of the seed, if you will. So the wind brings the seed to the earth, the sun cultivates the seedling, and it sprawls out into the existence. This is the understanding. And every time period of publication, we are switching these roles as you move from being the sun to being earth to being wind, etc. I think I got the sequence wrong, but you get the general idea there. And yeah, this produced such amazing, just to give my point of view there, such amazing interactions between the community as knowledge producers, let's say, people who have something to say, or even if it's playing around. So I really had gold memories from just participating in this floating newsletter. With Ulle, with Lene, with Laura, we had you put forward your thesis to be sort of dissected by the next. So it's really this amazing process. Also excruciating sometimes really rewarding, etc. But never certain. Never you never know what's going to come out when you start writing this thing, and that's why it's like producing all these volatile newsletters on our site.
Yeah, maybe I could say a little bit more about the structure of it within the sphere, in the sense that if anybody gets involved in the sphere, basically can be put on the list of this kind of cycle through these roles, so that that we put it so that there is kind of some folks who have done a few rounds of the floated newsletter, so they're kind of there to answer questions. We build it into the roles so that before you pass on your wind roll to the next wind, you hang around for a few questions. And so it's a way that you can come and knowledge share, where we're really asking that, because it is rollified within that space. But then you immediately move on to another moment where then you are, like you say, Jem, you're cultivating it. And then all of a sudden you are kind of making sure it gets published. You're doing these different elements that they concretize and make permanent in a bureaucracy or in a static organization. And we're kind of putting it into a looping structure that changes as it goes. And that's how we produce the newsletter and share knowledge with each other and have debates and arguments and celebrations and experience the weirdness of each other. Because I think if we want to have new economies for the performing arts, we want to experience more of the weirdness of each other in our communities, not less. So yeah, just to say that.
Yeah, I was familiar with anarchists experimenting with, or fighting against the specialization that one day, nobody has a fixed job, and one day you clean the street, the other you work in the factory, the other you teach in the elementary school, etc. to combat. But I think deployment in the, both the cyber context and also knowledge production context is, at least as an agent participating, is really joyful. And yeah.
That's awesome.
Speaking of loops, I don't know, Ulle, if you want to introduce us just a little bit to the website itself, because it has some little tricks there that are worth sharing, I think.
Of course. Here we are. So what we have here is basically a timeline that will all the time develop a bit. Where right now we have been presenting at a circus context called the subcase cyber because it's COVID-19 and they want to add something cool. Normally, it's subcase is a great meeting place for physical people, but we were there presenting the website itself. So, and I went bananas in terms of pushing the limits of and the constraints of the back end of what's possible to actually present in this website. So I've been really making everything over the top at the moment. So I'm also adjusting some parts of the website as we go, because here we have MoneyLab, but we will go to the future and the quite close future. We have several labs coming up right now. So what's interesting to look at, for instance, is the first version of the invitation for our Anarchive lab, and I think perhaps Joel is gonna can talk a little bit about this soon, but I can just if you have any specific wishes around thoughts around the how we present or how we interact with the website, you can just ask, and it's easier to kind of go into details like that. But we've been working very closely with Sepidar Hosseini as a visual artist and Johan Hemgren as developer for the website, and we've been having a great fun time during the fall to kind of capture what we're doing in a neat way, and also to kind of adjust ourselves to the bureaucracy that we're stuck in within the frames of the EU grant system. So it's also a very it can actually switch into a kind of mode that where it's actually the work that we do can actually easily be switched into a presentation that or a report of the whole project itself. So that's a quite neat thing, as we don't want to do too much of like a new public management way of just filling out 10 times for other reason than learning from it and so on. So I'm happy for that. We have a cryptoeconomic design lab coming up, accounting otherwise. There's a lot of things happening, and we will have a landing point in Berlin Circus Festival in the end of the summer also, where we will have like a lab around quadratic voting and look at curation of certain aspects or parts of festivals and how to create an invested audience participation and also can kind of distribute have artists also practice the art of decision making in the creational aspect of festivals in an easier way, and as well as looking at like the audience development aspect where we try to like engage and fully engage artists and public in also economic ways that were not possible maybe before, or easier, or we're going to lab around it. This is also in Portugal, where we have partner meetings where hopefully we can meet physically like a lot of people. So we see if this is possible this year, but we're still aiming for a nice Portugal lab with like at least a great chunk of all our partners, and to hopefully play with around their festival and how we can interact and work with the Sphere in that Teatro de Scala festival. You can see here that we have this is partners in the EU project. So I mean we are working with far more organizations and so on, but this is what it looks like at the moment, and we have a special mention here right now also, but more to come. And is it something in particular you have in mind, Erik, or someone that we should look into?
I mean, I think it's great that you walked us through it. One thing that stood out for me when I saw it for the first time, I mean, there's a bit of a conceptual trick that basically, if you go on the website, you will rapidly discover that the website is in the future, and we go towards the past as we explore it. And we had a very funny moment here at the Dahaus in Berlin where Laura Lotti, who is not here because she's part of the team, but she's already everywhere in this MoneyLab, so we spared her. But basically she was very frustrated that we could only go backwards and we couldn't go forward in the future. And I don't know, it was a funny moment because there's a lot of cleverness in that design. I think you did an amazing job at making it both playful and intriguing. And look at this fantastic aesthetic. I mean, I'm really impressed. And maybe speaking of which, like this, because I love also that because we were thinking a lot about like you said, Ulle, it's kind of a pain in the ass to be constantly reporting, like to report because of the money that we got, and you spend almost half the time reporting at the end of the day, and it's not worth the money. So to have a website that actually allows you to report as we go and becomes a coordination tool for ourselves, I mean, this I think it's brilliant in many ways. And I don't know, maybe Joel, I don't know if you want to jump in, but because there's something of the Anarchive spirit, I think, that's alive in that website, or as we saw before, it's the upcoming lab, basically. We have a series of 3 labs coming up. The first one is the Anarchive, beginning of April, then cryptoeconomic design later in April, and then the third and last one before our landing at the Berlin Circus Festival is going to be the Accounting Otherwise lab that I'm co-organizing with Yael, and that's going to be mid-May, and we hope by then that we're going to be able to do a LARP assisted by Goldman Sachs, but that's another story. So yeah, I don't know, Joel, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, no, I can say some things. So the lab, April 7th and 9th, is on anarchiving, kind of the what else of the trace of the event, as we look at experiments to build the sphere as a place where we are funding milieus and not reinscribing the individual that is the subject of scarcity, stuff like that. So we want to the lab experiment with that. And Ole referenced it, where we're going to have like a live video feed of circus performers doing iterative games around notation and passing on. So, kind of challenging the forms of ownership, but also finding out from the base level of the circus community what the process is of creation. Because, Erik was talking about the funding of milieus, and Yael was talking about the funding of process. And I think that this is the kind of the thing that all of us are doing different experiments to get at. What's a non-modern subject-based performing arts economy? Because we already know what a subject-based any kind of economy looks like, right? Where we are the subjects of the deterritorialization of the protocols of the economy that gets instituted. So we can do some tertiary changes on top, or we can go into this more experimental, playful mode, the embracing, as Erik said, our capacities at aspiration and conspiration. And I would add experimentation to really try things. So on the other side of the live video feed of the, how do you slice it to art? Hungry which way? Exactly. On the other side of the live video feed of circus experimentations, we're going to have an online game of making fragments of experience. And if you see in the live stream chat, there's been some fragments, that are purposefully kind of unfinished and purposely just kind of pulls out of the way if you're making wine and you take a pull out of it to see how it's doing, you're not tasting what it will be, but it gives you a sense. And I think in the sphere, we're interested in that being such a multi-perspectival thing. So the game we're going to play is about minting fragments of expression in really simple ways that we're not worried about our reputation as visual artists or as thinkers. We're just trying to add to the growing basket of fragments that will give us the keys to understand a little bit where we're going. Because the track that wants to predetermine where we're going is not so interesting to us. And maybe just a last point about one of the inspirations for this kind of minting of fragments within the sphere proposition for me is Dick Bryan, who's the chief economist at EXA and a fabulous person. And one of the things that Dick Bryan really works on is the kind of taking Hayek over to the left, where he brings over that kind of emphasis on circulation and kind of pulsing the system, but bringing it over to a less flattened place. So you remove central planning and keep circulation with Hayek, but move it to the left to more fundamentally encode creativity and difference into the scene of circulation. And I think that's something that the sphere is doing really excitingly, is in looking to encode creativity and difference into the scene of circulation itself. So where, it's not, we're not flattening the things, we're actually experimenting with how those fragments gesture forward to other performances and to other imaginations about how we do economies too. So, so everyone's welcome at that lab online. The in-person one is, via COVID restrictions, so that's not open, but April 7th to the 9th. That's going to be quite fun. And so, you'll probably see these fragments that were made today make an appearance in that game. And then in that game, we'll pass on to the Cryptoeconomics Design Lab, and who knows what they're going to do, and then on to the Accounting Otherwise Lab. And so we want to kind of join in this weird self-programmation that's not predetermination, and see what it does to us, see what it does to the project if we and that's the same thing with the floating newsletter that Lenny was talking about. We program some aspects, but we really protect the informal aspect of a lot of it to see, again, what that weirdness is that we all bring. So, yeah, that's the anarchival spirit as I'm feeling it right now, Erik. Back to you.
That's super nice, Joel. Beautiful. Yeah. We've covered a lot. Is there anything else left?
I can say a few things about Lala.
Oh.
It stole the show.
There we go.
Yeah, go on with cryptoeconomics.
So at Sphere, we've been juggling with multiple ideas, and some of them just went off the screen, but mostly we're still, keeping engaged, and somehow all balls are still up in the air. And yeah, if to plug Cryptoeconomics Lab and perhaps Curve Labs in that light, like what's going on, why do we have a special Credits and Sphere website? Yeah, so, as you might have understood by now, Sphere has a very clear and very ambitious goal of reforming ecologies of funding in the cultural sector. And, reformation is a tricky word. And sometimes, like reformation and revolution has sort of this tension between them, which, different people have different opinions on. But it's a tricky thing to bring to life, because reformation requires the consent of all shareholders that are involved with, a certain process or an existing process. Which, if you imagine, the cultural sector as such, there's a lot of stakeholders involved and a lot of archaic systems that are, perpetuating themselves. So it's not so easy to approach, at least in the democratic dimension of, let's ask how everyone feels about this, etc. At least it's not so much fitting to the innovative speeds, etc. So it's having a hard time reconcile with the technological development, in my opinion. But this sort of makes the case that, there is something about disruption that, is worth considering, like disruption that, without asking everybody's opinion, if you will, or without getting authorities' consent, etc. So these type of, I think, provocations are much more, have much more of a claim to the future than, ideological encodings that try to get a general consensus behind it. So this is, I think, also the journey of the Sphere as we try to sort of bring these ideas, test them with the general public, but also particular stakeholders, including the state or people who represent the state, or even artists, etc. I mean, the metaphor here is that you don't simply ask someone to play by reading through 30 pages of game rules, like that. That's or making sure everybody is fine with every aspect of the game, etc. Sometimes all it takes is like one provocation, and you start running, and they start chasing you, and that's kind of usually the way I think game virality works is more on this side. Obviously, if there are cases for more deliberation, they are very welcome. Just tying back to Sphere's soul searching in terms of its intentions for actualization for this reformation, I think we see ourselves going from, looking at the European cultural sector funding reformers to a much more small-scale experimentation where we can actually, have fun, but also, see tangible benefits as we play. Not only benefits but even drawbacks, because negative learning is underrated but is super useful. So when we are facing a situation of having to convince the state or such a inertia actor, and spending all your energy and spending all your time to engage in these type of systems in a almost lobbying type of fashion, I do not see that as efficient as iterating with the community, with the stakeholders, playing with the. So I really like the play tank reference you made earlier, Erik. And yeah, in the cryptoeconomic design lab, what we're going to talk about is, and generate fragments about, is what I call chakras of transformation. And I think this is sort of different localities which have different theses about how transformation could take place. I see already Yael is writing in the chat, for example, about if disruption can lead to reform, etc. So I think there's all these different types of perspectives that we have to bring in. Some are infused with a little bit more social responsibility, the others with more playfulness or curiosity. And my aim as the curator of this lab is to sort of show that these chakras can sort of work in tandem with each other and actually deliver much more powerfully when there's that harmonization. Yeah, and so just to again expand on that a little bit, we were thinking about very tangibly establishing a quadratic voting or quadratic funding mechanism for the field of performing arts in Europe. And obviously this has lots of dependencies, including, if you know quadratic funding, basically it works with a pool of sponsors that are matching democratic expression of certain votes, and these votes are weighted according to how they are spread out. The incentive is to spread your votes as much as possible so that you have highest amount of influence in every marginal contribution you're doing, and then these contributions are matched with this pool of funding. So the idea that we had was, let's not alienate the state or existing funders for the performing arts, and let's have them participate in the form of this matching pool. But again, it's pretty difficult to deploy these systems at large on societal levels, and perhaps it really shouldn't be this way, because it should be tested in smaller scales and played out. So this is where we find ourselves today, and we see that there are tools that are coming together into maturity that the sphere can utilize for creating collective forms of value creation in art terms, value creation, curation, and capturing that and distributing that. So we're going to try to really focus on playing in our garden first, and we hope to really open that up in the Cryptoeconomic Design Lab in late April. So I hope to see you all there.
Maybe just one thing I'd like to add on that is that we are in partnership with Further Field around a culture stake, a model of quadratic voting that they've deployed and that they have shared with us, and that we're now interpreting and developing in our own way. But they've been really instrumental, and Jem has been piloting this partnership, and I think is starting to take a very nice shape. I don't know, Sarah, if you want to say something about the production of the pilot performances and how we're imagining to apply that model.
I just dropped a link in the chat. Maybe if someone can carry that over to the general chat, it has all the sort of coordinates that like sort of a series of references from our conversation.
Nice.
Yes, I'd be happy to. Within one big advantage I think that we have in the sphere is that we're not like a project as an idea. We actually have partners who are functioning as they are like circus festivals in performing arts, and have been for a long time, up and running. So we have like practical user cases, which is maybe a bit different to many projects who dream a lot, have high, they want a lot maybe, but doesn't have the playground we do. I like it that we play, but it's also like real play with real audience, and within the project that runs for 3 years, we will be producing 3 circus performances. We call them pilot performances because they are like piloting pilots in the sphere rocket. So they will be produced in a way that is according to the sphere, whatever this first year of research might lead up to concerning anarchiving, for example. So when as an artist or a circus company, when you start producing a performance within the framework of the sphere, you will do it as you always do it. I mean, you will rehearse in spaces and do work with your artistic work as you always do, but some things will be different. Like, we don't know exactly how, but probably in the way how you manage your IP, how you archive or unarchive or save your artistic process, not to protect it primarily, but to be able to share it also, and to have this open source feeling of your work. So these 3 performances, we still don't know who will make them, what company or what circus artist will be producing them. But we're playing around right now with designing a nice model for the curation of the 3 performances together with the partners in the EU project. So we have a festival in Portugal, we have a circus festival in Italy, in France, in Germany, in Lithuania, who are like super hyped also about this opportunity to curate together through some version of the quadratic voting, and just to be thinking about this with partners and like turn around, think in a new way. Like in the old way, you would curate maybe. You would have like a contest, or you pitch your projects, and this is one of Erik's most like precious points, that it's not about a contest and winners and losers, but we might be able to find a way of monitoring the preferences of like the local audience in the partner countries. Maybe also give some valuable feedback to the projects that might not be chosen, but they will get some important information about how to move on with their projects. So this is super exciting, and also me, as I'm not a tech person, but I'm trying to like get there. To hear about also what Beth is talking about, gnosis, and this way that we might. My question is always, okay, a DAO, I get it, I think, but how can my mother be in a DAO? will she have to know what a DAO is, or I mean, how is the interaction actually going to be? What's the interface like? How do you do it? Do you need to like know what crypto is about? Because we need to get over that point where you can onboard without knowing these things. Normal circus audience, it consists of people who don't have like profound knowledge about this stuff. So, but the gnosis, Beth would describe it a lot better. But from what I can see, it's also a super, super nice way to actually, maybe we can make a DAO. Maybe we can have like the partners in our project work together like that and make decisions together and not, and not just talk about decentralized governance and blah, 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 but actually do it. That's what I'm looking forward to a lot, like to actually try out stuff. And I think we can do it because we have the community already. Or we have the circus community in several European countries. So, yeah, I don't know, Beth, do you want to say something about that, or?
Yeah, just that it's really exciting to work with you guys on, what we are trying to build is a really user-friendly kind of lightweight interface for interacting with DAOs. And, being able to come with, an idea and existing assemblage and way of organizing yourself and have the interface be super easy for, modifying it and making it composable for what you need. So yeah, it's super cool experimenting with you guys. And I care a lot about bringing, quadratic voting, like these different voting mechanisms to be more accessible for our type of use case. So super cool.
Are you even going to bring NFT as well?
I mean, yeah, we can figure that out. So yeah, Ole and I have been working on some really cool, like using NFT as like a medium in practice for exploring kind of programmable choreography and what that can look like. And, exists as a new maybe kind of payment structure, accounting structure, and like, worst case scenario, just a new way of thinking about producing this performance. So yeah, I think we can see how all these things tie together.
Yeah, super nice. I mean, I'm exhausted. I think we're almost done. I don't know. I haven't been monitoring what happens on the outside on the MoneyLab stream. I don't know if there is questions. I know that there's like a brilliant diagrammer that has been feeding in fantastic diagrams as we go.
I would say.
Oh, there's a new one. Let's see. And otherwise, yeah, maybe I can end with a word. Oh, nice. Whoa. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, we have this guy. If he's not already employed, we need to hire him. Huh? Yes, I want to share one last element for the third lab, the accounting otherwise, that we are preparing with Yael. There is going to be a LARP basically around question of ecologies of funding, and we're super pumped to collaborate with the Goldman Sachs crew. 2 years ago at Volksbühne, they did an amazing LARP that was kind of covering the whole of the art world. And yeah, I mean, Joel was there. That was like an insane moment. Like, if we were not in love with Berlin already by then, like it was irresistible. Well, they accepted to collaborate with us for the Accounting Otherwise lab. So we're going to LARP something with them around ecologies of funding. Details to be made more detailed soon enough, but I can read the proposition that they have shared with us already. So let me just find that. Where did I open it up? Oh yeah, here it is. Okay, so Goldman Sachs led the market in 2019 in trading tactics and decentralized funding, codifying the unconditional mutation of the undead corpse called 21st century late capitalism. Our tool, Commons trademark, CUM, Commons trademark, became the first choice funding alternative to the conventional attention economy in the art world. After a period of rest and rehabilitation, Goldman Sachs, with a $sign for the S, has awakened from their cryogenic sleep chamber, eager to unleash Commons 2.0, CUM. Commons 2.0 leverages rhizomatic dreamscapes and aerial gameplay to broker the imaginarium of art and finance. Expect the highest quality in absolute affirmation, opaque transparency, and disruptive processing, a total terror with a zero, production to release you from the bonds of financial infestation. Goldman Sachs is presented to you by Leak Ventures that includes Steph Oltrieux, Jan Kunkel, Gina Mertz, and Fotini Takirdiki. We don't know much more than that, but does sound exciting, and looking forward to create that thing in the coming weeks. There's a lot coming up as you see. So I checked the chat one last time. Shall we ask our audience to ask questions? Yes. We have 5 more minutes-ish, like 3 minutes. If anyone has last comments, if the audience wants to become the artist.
Comments with you. Comments. If they have
comments with you, yes, comments. Yes. Yael, I don't know if you want to jump in for a comment, if you're still there.
Yeah, no, I'm still here. I think it would be interesting to hear from the audience, but if not, yeah, I think I'm really looking forward to exploring in accounting. Otherwise, the kind of questions we were thinking about with gift economy and how can that be integrated into any kind of thinking about accounting at all, and whether accounting is it actually a counter medicine to gifting and reciprocity and care at all. And I think that would be a really interesting thing to dive into in our lab.
Totally. Okay. Well, I'm tired. It's been a big afternoon. I want Jem. I want your thing. Soon enough. I guess we can wrap it up. Is our guardian angel Ella around listening?
You can say so. I was listening all the time. Hey,
fantastic.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, Sarah, Jem, Lene, Erik, Ole, Robin, for the amazing graphic recording, and Joel and Beth and Yael. That was fantastic. And I think you really walked us through a very extensive perspective of what is going to happen within the sphere. And I just want to wish you the best of luck for all the future activities, and especially for the Cryptoeconomic Design Lab. And we are going to take a 15 minutes coffee break now before we again switch over to our friends from Trust for the Black Swan DAO session. 15 minutes, have a coffee, some fresh air. Thanks again, guys, and see you soon.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.